Hello everyone, this is Srishti Khairwar, a third-year law student at the School of Law, Jagran Lake City University, Bhopal. And today we'll be learning about the Election Commission of India under Part 15 of the Constitution of India. So let's begin. I'd be sharing my screen. Let me know if it is visible to everyone. So I think it should be. Let's begin with understanding what exactly the Election Commission of India is. So the Election Commission of India is an autonomous body, a constitutional authority, which is responsible for administering elections to the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the legislative assemblies of the different states in India. Also, the offices of president and the vice president in the country, the elections of which take place, are also taking place under the administration of the Election Commission of India. Now, from what does the Election Commission of India gain its authority? The Constitution of India. The Constitution of India deals with elections and establishes a commission, which is the Election Commission of India, under Part 15 of itself. The Election Commission was established in the year 1950 on the 25th of January in accordance with the Constitution of India. And let's take a brief overview from the articles, Article 324 to 329 of the Constitution, which deal with the powers, functions, eligibility, and tenure of the Commission and its members. Moving on, let's have a quick overview. We'll not deep dive into that. We'll simply just take a look as to what articles are related to the elections and the Election Commission in general. So firstly, Article 324, which talks about the superintendent's direction and control of elections, which are to be vested in the Election Commission. Article 325 deals with no person being ineligible for inclusion in or to claim to be included in a special electoral roll on grounds of religion, race, sex, or caste. Article 326 deals with the elections to the House of People and to the legislative assemblies of the states on the basis of the suffrage. Article 327 gives the power of Parliament, gives the power to the Parliament to make provisions with respect to the elections to legislatures. Article 328 talks about the power of legislature of a state to make provision with respect to the elections of legislature. And lastly, Article 329 of Part 15 of the Constitution empowers the bar to interfere by courts in electoral matters, right? So we understand that till now, Election Commission of India is an autonomous body, but it has legal support since Article 329 is a very important article for us to understand. Now, moving towards what exactly are the major challenges that we face. Now that we have understood that there are articles, there's a body of the Election Commission of India which already exists. The reason why we're talking about this, the reason why we are addressing this very important topic is because of the challenges that come forward, which inhibit the people's trust to grow, which make the people apprehensive about the whole procedure of elections in India, are as follows. Firstly, that over the years, the influence of money and criminal elements in politics has increased manifold, right? So a few challenges, and which are very major and crucial in nature, that are being faced. Firstly, that there's a abuse of power, frequent, rampant abuse of power by the state government, which is to say that pliable officials, the officials which can be influenced very easily, are put in key positions in the Election Commission, are put in key positions in various different offices, who use official vehicles and buildings for electioning, canvassing, and flouting the Election Commission's model code of conduct, right? We'll discuss more on the model code of conduct. But then what we are discussing here right now is that there's a rampant abuse of power, which is a major challenge that the Election Commission of India is facing. Secondly, we talk about the fact that the Election Commission of India is not adequately equipped to regulate the political parties. So the Election Commission of India has all the authority to conduct the elections in whatever manner that best suits, but then it has no power in enforcing the inner party democracy. It has no power in regulation of the party finances, and which is why we say that the ECI is not adequately equipped, which can raise a problem, which can come up as a major challenge, right? Thirdly, we talk about the Election Commission being dependent on the executive, which is to say that the election commission, which is an autonomous body, which needs to be free, impartial, very fair, and needs to be kept aside from the legislature, executive, and every other body which is present, is not independent of the executive. The executive, which is such a powerful part of the nation, which runs the nation as one of the pillars of democracy, the Election Commission of India is gaining an impression that it is becoming less and less independent of the executive, and which is why the image of the Election Commission has been impacted widely. Fourthly, we talk about the non-transparency. Understand, in a country like India, where the population is so high, where people move out of their homes to vote in large numbers, where every person who's aged more than 18 is eligible to vote, with such great population, there's a great need that a trust is built between the Election Commission, which is the body which conducts the election, and the general public. Right. And how can it be gained? It can only be gained when there is a great transparency, where the general public, the population of India, knows that apart from that in spite of the drawbacks which exist in the modern society, there is a possibility that their vote can make a change. And they will only vote, they can only come up for making a change when it is a transparent procedure, and when they can gain, the election commission can gain the trust of the general public. Next, we move on to the very important facet of the whole debatable topic of the elections taking place: the EVMs, the electronic voting machines. How are that a problem? So the EVM, as we have seen time and again, have been debatable, that they are being malfunctioned, or let's say that they are in a position that they can be tampered, right? And why all of these things come into the picture? Because we have seen incidents, we've seen instances where they're getting hacked, or where they're not registering votes, or they're not working properly. And so the problems that the general public faces while they go out for casting their vote is something which needs to be tackled. So these 5 major challenges that are addressed in this video currently need to be taken up and need to be kept in mind of every individual, and with a view that it should be solved in the near future. Moving ahead, we see 2 very important problems, or let's say loopholes, challenges. The one loophole is that since the party which is in power currently, they aid and advise the president to appoint the commissioner of the election commission. Therefore, the election commission has an inclination, a tendency of inclination towards the ruling party, a bias, slight bias towards the ruling party. It is not visible, it is not very explicit, but implicitly it feels that there's a bias towards the ruling party. The Citizens Commission on Elections came up with a report called An Investigation into India's Political Race Framework. This report analyzed 2 things. Firstly, that since the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, grave doubts have been raised around the fairness of the polls, and it was a question in front of the people of India whether India is becoming an electoral autocracy. Is there something which is going wrong with the process of elections that is taking place in India? Further, the report also said that in spite of the resistance from the ECI and RBI, the central government utilized the cash bill course to sidestep Rajya Sabha and presented constituent securities through the Finance Act 2017. Understand that in this era of executive dominance, where the pillar of executive is dominating everything which takes place in the nation of India, every decision which impacts the general public, the Election Commission's very ability to act as an independent referee has been curtailed to some extent. The executive, which is appointed as the election commissioners, are perceived to be pliant, or realize that asserting institutional autonomy will come at great personal cost. And all of these things need to be taken care of, right? Only then we'll be able to have free and fair elections. The second most important loophole here is that a case law came in front of us where we talked about the election commissioner Ashok Lavasa, where questions were raised and questions were raised and investigations were done. But instead of going to take a resort, Lavasa resigned from the Election Commission in the year 2020. Now, we've seen that the Supreme Court has preserved the autonomy of the Election Commission in the past. It has also shown deference programs towards dominant executive since 2014, and which is due to the fact that it is a bit biased towards the ruling party. But its refusal to make the consequential electoral bonds program transparent is something which is reducing the trust between the general public and the Election Commission. Now, these are the loopholes which were addressed, right? A recent case that we've seen in the COVID times regarding the elections is the fact of the Karnataka, the state of Karnataka, where during the COVID-19 times in the month of January itself, the BJP pioneers took out their conventions, took out their rallies, and at a rally where people were not wearing masks, were not maintaining social distance, were not following the COVID-19 protocols, a petition was filed in the High Court by the National Human Rights Protection and Corruption Crime Control Commission Trust, where the bench observed that the commissioner has behaved in a manner that is dependent on photographs and only recovered rupees 20,900 as a fine, which is very low for breaking such an important COVID-19 protocol. Understand that during these testing times, life is any day much more important than elections. Understand when we compare the both of these things. The way that the Election Commission has omitted to take action against the Home Minister's violation of such necessary protocol clearly shows that it has a slight bias towards the ruling party. However, there might be a case that this loophole is taken into consideration and is removed in its entirety. But then this is an issue which needs to be addressed, right? Moving towards the very important aspect of the electronic voting machines. As I've already mentioned, that in the nation of India, where elections are so important, where every single individual has a right to vote and a right and a possibility to make change, be it of a small scale or a large scale, everyone has to cast a vote. And how do they do it? They move out of their homes, they cast a vote through the EVMs, through the electronic voting machines. Now, the electronic voting machines in the recent times have been very debatable. Why? Simply because they've been tampered with. Either they are claimed to be, they're alleged that they can be hacked very easily and their authenticity cannot be tested, and then they stop responding, they do not consider the votes of the people, and all of these things lead to only one thing: the trust that is breaking down in people's mind. The trust on the Election Commission of India, the body which is responsible for conducting the elections, the trust that people have on the whole procedure of elections, which has been there since the very starting. This trust is breaking down slowly. Countries like Germany, Ireland, USA, Italy, who are more technologically sound than India, have doubted the transparency of EVM machines because the fact that they can be hacked, the fact that they're not responding when they need to, the fact that during the elections they're the most important machines that are there, if they are not working properly, if they are not transparent, if they cannot build the trust of the general public, then how can elections take place in a manner that they are free and fair? A question to that has always been there. Lastly, the Election Commission of India has repeatedly denied time and again that there's no possibility of tampering of EVMs. Not only this, the Election Commission has also challenged publicly to tamper the EVM for a prize, which makes us to conclude this very fact that EVMs cannot be tampered with. However, there have been incidents, there have been instances where we have seen that the EVMs have stopped working, they've stopped responding, they're not registering the votes. Now, these are a few flaws which are there, which we hope that they get resolved sooner. For that, we have a few measures. 5 measures that we think are very important and can be implemented very easily just to give it a very smooth running. However, more and more measures can come up, more and more measures can be taken up to curb the problem in its entirety. But to a very strong extent, to a very starting point of view, we have 5 things. Firstly, the functionality check. We need to understand that all the EVMs are cleared and are made sure that they are in a working condition, they are functional before they are kept into use. Secondly, random checks could take place. A mock poll could be conducted. Around 1,000 votes can be polled and the results can be printed out. So this random check can help us realize that, okay, this machine is working, right? Thirdly, throwing the dice. This is also done randomly. We put any EVM in any constituency, in any polling booth and see if it is running. We can have different booths, different constituencies where we have these EVMs, and let's see if they're working. And this is how we can ensure that, okay, all the EVMs are working in a manner that they're adequately adding the responses of all the people who have voted. Fourthly, we can have a dry run. Understand that whenever we do anything in life or in general, we need to have practice and run throughs of that. A dry run before the start of the actual poll, which is also known as a mock poll, can be conducted with, let's say, 50 votes or 100 votes in presence of candidates or their agents, right? The result of the mock poll can be closed and displayed later on. And therefore, a dry run can be an effective manner to go on and show that this is a way that the EVM can be ensured that they're working before the actual elections take place. The last and the most important thing, the safety and security of the electronic voting machines, until and unless they are kept in a manner that they are secured, that they can be used in elections time and again. We need to make sure that they are placed in their carrying cases and they're sealed. The machines are transported back to the reception centers under armed escort and are kept in a strong room. Only then we would be in a position to make sure that, okay, now that the EVMs are in a position that they can't be tampered with, now that the trust of the people are gained because all the problems related to the EVMs are solved, now the election procedure could be functioning in a smooth manner. Next, we move on to a very peculiar case of the 8-phase election in Bengal. Recently, before the elections, before the results of the Bengal election were declared, the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee was vocal about how BJP has an influence on the election dates and how it is the propaganda of the BJP to come up with such a matter of 8-phase election in Bengal, right? The Election Commission on this very allegation of Mamata Banerjee, the Chief Minister of Bengal, came up with 2 justifications. The first, the justification of law and order. As we all know, Bengal is a society where small petty issues can turn into violent ones, right? And therefore, to maintain law and order, this 8-phase elections was very necessary. Secondly, the security level of Bengal is already very high because of these street violences taking place, because of all the other issues which might take place. And therefore, in order to have elections in such a society, in such a manner, it is important that they are taken care of under great scrutiny. And therefore, the 8-phase election is something which was a very feasible way to conduct the elections in the state therein, right? To which a PIL was filed in the Supreme Court, where the CBI inquiry was sought against the Minister of Home Affairs. The Chief Justice, along with his companion justices, dismissed the petition that 8-phase elections are fully justified. They have their mechanisms working behind them, and which is why those are the things that should be there and is the right way to conduct elections in Bengal, right? The next thing that we see is that now that we've discussed how the Election Commission is established, how it works, what are the articles related to it, what are the challenges that are faced, how the EVMs are facing some loopholes, some problems, and how can they be changed in a manner that measures can be taken forward to make sure that EVMs cannot be tampered with. We now have come to a place that we can simply decide and discuss as to what could be the way forward. The 5 to 6 things that we think are very important herein is firstly that the Election Commission needs to be very vigilant and watchful against the collusion which takes place at the lower or the higher level at any point in time. Which is to say that the Election Commission needs to understand that since they are an unbiased body, an impartial body, they should not be biased towards the ruling party of the day. And naturally, that is never the scenario where they are intentionally biased. However, intentionally or unintentionally, it is to be noted that they need to be vigilant and watchful at all times. Secondly, to garner the trust amongst the people who are the general public who will be voting, the installation of voter verifiable paper audit trail system is something which can be there present in more and more constituencies. Therefore, the glitches of EVM, the controversies behind that can be settled down. Thirdly, there can be more legal support. Understand that as law students or law aspirants, it is very important for us to understand the two things which make the Election Commission of India what it is today. First, the trust of general public in it, and secondly, the backing that it gets from the law background, from the legal support through which it rises. Because if there's any problem which occurs, if there's any challenge that it faces, or if there's anything at all which the Election Commission can take a recourse to, is through legal support. There needs to be more and more legal support to the Commission's mandate and the processes that support those mandates, right? Fourthly, we talk about the history. That time and again, it always has been shown to us that there's been inadequate leadership. Historically, there's been inadequate leadership, and the people who head the very important bodies which are involved in the elections in India are usually people who are pliant, people who can get influenced easily, people who get biased. But then, to ensure that elections are taken place in a manner that they are free and fair, safeguards are needed to be taken to ensure that ethical and capable people head these crucial and very important, significant bodies of the elections, especially the Election Commission of India. Lastly, the law minister, the prime minister, the speaker of Lok Sabha, the deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha, and all other ministers who are in a position to give recommendations should give recommendations for the consideration of the president for the appointment of the chief election commissioner and the election commissioners. This is a very important step because it includes all the other pillars and all the other bodies of the government of the government of India and the democracy that the nation of India is in general. And therefore, this is a very important way to look forward, right? Then we talk about the final thing that we all have understood till now, that is the conclusion. We've come up with the issues which take place. We've understood what are the problems. We've understood how can they be tackled. We now come to the conclusion of it. Till now, we've understood that there's a model code of conduct which ensures the credibility and ability of people who contest the elections, who conduct the elections, who vote in the elections. And therefore, there's a code of conduct that everyone needs to follow, and the violation of which might result in grave circumstances, right? So two important things here. Firstly, the appointment procedure. Since we're talking about the Election Commission of India, the election commissioners who are appointed by the president and who is bound by the advice of the government, they need to be appointed in a manner that the commissioners do not have a tendency to favor the government in their decisions. They are unbiased and impartial at all times. Secondly, we should have a well-defined model code of conduct and a proper enforcement route to that. So this important issue, which is the lack of a defined mechanism to enforce the model code of conduct, is a very important one, right? We see that in the recent elections, there are complaints in relation to the violations of the model code of conduct, and therefore no punishment is given even if they are violated. Now, this is something that needs to be enforced, that punishments are given, the model code of conduct is enforced, and everyone is following all of those regulations under those, right? So on a concluding note, we would like to say that the ECI should take steps to design a better method to address every complaint in a time-bound, fair, and transparent manner. Understand that fair and free elections is the right and voting is the right of every individual which is above the age of 18 in the nation of India. They need to be transparent so that the general public has their trust over the Election Commission of India and on the whole procedure of the elections. And they need to be time bound so that the trust is enhanced on the Election Commission of India, that the problems are getting redressed and they're getting solved at the end of the day. Right. With this, we finally end with a quote by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Remember, for your progress, for your welfare, your happiness, never fail to cast your vote in elections. It is very, very pertinent for us to understand that every individual in the nation of India above the age of 18 has the right to vote. And it is the vote which can make a change, a very significant change, whether small or big, doesn't matter, but a change in the society. And that can only shape the society in today's world. With this, we conclude with the presentation. I hope that you've understood the very concept of how the Election Commission of India works, how the elections take place, what are the loopholes and challenges that people in India face during elections. And we need to understand how can they be curbed. We've come with a few recommendations, we've come with a few measures. And with this, I would like to conclude. And also, I'd like to request you all to subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. With that, let's see you in another video. Goodbye.